So I am unsure what's going on here, but this is Kimberly, and we had some technical difficulties, so I am sending everybody over here. So bear with me. Yeah, this is crazy. Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. We're going to wait, and if we aren't able to do this today, then we will reschedule. It hasn't been easy today. Right? All right. Okay, people are finally finding me. Sorry about that. So if you're just tuning in, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty. And if someone can confirm they can hear me. We've got all sorts of gremlins going on here on the internet today. Yeah? Okay. Can anyone just make sure that they hear me? Can you confirm? Yes? No? Anyone? Anyone? Hello? Hello, 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 hello. Sorry. We had to move because we had some serious technical difficulties that happened right before I tried to record. So we're just going to go ahead and move on over to this part of YouTube where we're doing it kind of OG style. All right. Well, welcome. This is Kimberly from Are You Awakening? And if you have not seen my channel before, welcome. I am currently shape-shifting. I'm letting my gray hair grow back in, and this is part of my kind of going back to the natural state. I'm not going like way natural, like I'm not gonna not shave my legs and stuff. I mean, there is a limit, right? Anyway, all right, we're just waiting for a couple more people to show up here. I got indication that they are moving over from the other video, and then in 10 seconds we will start. Okay. All right, here we go. We're going. We're doing it. If it doesn't work, then I'll just do another one and we'll just have fun practicing together live. So today we're going to talk about death walking. And I am going to refer to my notes a little bit because I wrote a lot of stuff down. It's kind of a touchy subject for a lot of people because so many people are afraid of death. Hi, Max. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. Say yes, you can hear me. Okay, thank you. Good. Okay. So we're going to talk about death walking. And I was telling a couple people today before I started this video that, thank you, Jessica, that I was doing something on death, and they're like, no, I'll pass. I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to think about death. Well, that's fine. I mean, in the world of manifestation, a lot of people are really afraid to think about it because they think if they think about it, they're going to bring it on, which not really the case. It's okay to think about it. However, I do get it that you could come to that conclusion. So we are going to talk about death walking today. And death walking is a very ancient shamanic tradition that includes, it's like the opposite of a midwife. So everybody always touts all the midwives. Oh, she was amazing, and she held my wife's hand, et cetera, when there's a birth happening, but you don't really happen to hear about it when there's a death happening. So death walkers are those who assist souls over to the other side and come back. Just like a midwife would assist a birth happening into the world, death walkers assist on the way out. And very popular, especially back in Egyptian times, if you've done any research there. You row the boat and you go over, you got the coins on the eye so you can pay the guy at the gate, et cetera, et cetera. So in Egyptian times, they weren't called shamans back then, but there were specialists that would assist people across the river and over the Rainbow Bridge, as we call it now, into the afterlife. So I recently discovered that I am a death walker. And I mean, honestly, if I'd taken my time to look at it back then, it would have been pretty obvious because it's been my whole life. However, now I'm conscious about it, and my life is a whole lot different because I know what I'm doing now. So what does a death walker do? So most of us that are human are in this body, and we have an awful lot of stuff that we could bring with us after we pass. Anxiety, fears about what hell might look like, beliefs about what the afterlife is supposed to look like, or if there's anything happening at all, right? And so souls, when they die, often get caught off guard. And death walkers are there to assist a confused soul over to the other side. So what does that look like? Well, in my earlier times, I didn't realize I was doing it. A lot of times it happened to me with animals. So I had a big ranch. I had a bunch of horses and goats and all sorts of stuff. And then I started to see other animals come in, like wild animals come in to my farm and then just die. They just die. I'm like, what the hell is this? I mean, it would literally die in my arms, like roosters from other farms and cats and dogs and horses, and they would end up on my farm for some reason and die. And I thought, my God, what am I, the queen of death? So my friends call me Grim Kim because they thought it was cute, and I get it. The whole death part for me was like, I'm causing the death, but that's not the case. Now I realize after a few years of thinking about it that these animals came to me because I had an ability I was unaware of to assist them in their confusion over to the other side. Well, that's all well and good for animals because, you know, they're fuzzy and lovable, but humans are sometimes a little bit of a different thing, right? So humans can be really cranky when they die or really scared. And a few months ago, I had an immediate go lay down, go do this, go put everything aside. And as soon as I closed my eyes, I was in a room where a man was about to be put to death via lethal injection. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? And to give you an idea of what that felt like, it was like I was literally standing behind him in the room. He was actually there. He didn't see me, but I was standing right behind this chair. There were doctors over here. They had a clipboard. There was a nurse over here with the IV. So I got to actually feel what this man was feeling inside. And as you can imagine, you know, when you're faced with your death and you know it's imminent in the next few minutes, a lot of things come up, a lot of fears come up, a lot of anxiety, and oh, is the tough guy gonna wet his pants, or all of these things. So I got to feel what went through this person's mind. Now, this was my first conscious death walk, meaning that I have been doing this in my dream state, where I was not fully aware of it till I woke up in the morning and I'm like, oh, okay, there it was. But this one was conscious, like I was right there making conscious choices. And that was the first one for me. So this guy is terrified. He knows there's a bunch of people on the other side of that glass, the mirrored glass, that are watching, and his mind's going a million miles a minute. So apparently we know what to do, because I put my spiritual arms around him. I enveloped him with a colored light, and I could feel the soul calm down. So I'm like, all right, here we are. This is weird. I was in my, on my couch in West Hollywood, California, and now I'm in some prison somewhere, and I don't know how I got here. And that's a little freaky, by the way, just to let you know. And they put the little IV in to kind of calm him down, and it calmed him down. Then a little while later, they put the final one in, and all of a sudden I could feel the soul it pops out right through the crown chakra, like pop like that. Well, great. But if you don't really know where you're going and you're confused and you're scared, even as a human outside of your body, you are still carrying those things with you. So he was very agitated. I took him to the ceiling. And this is all, now that you guys are awakening, you can kind of understand the language I'm using, in that this is, even though it's happening in your head, it's really happening on a screen in front of your eyes, whether your eyes are closed or open. And that is exactly what the rest of your reality is anyway. So it's all the same. It's just a different level of awareness. So we kind of go a little bit through the ceiling, and we make it to the proverbial tunnel, which, as I found out now, is different for each person. Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter, some of them are brighter, some of them you can see entities at the other end, some of them you can't. And as soon as I get into the tunnel, I am basically behind this mass of energy, which is his soul. And as you awaken more and you probably do more research, you're going to hear different colors that people exhibit, and holes and all sorts of things. Well, that's very true based on the awareness of the soul at the time of death. So you can have somebody with a lot of dark splotches where they're confused, where they're angry, where there's a lot of fear, and you can see those shapes in a soul signature as you're urging them along the tunnel. Now, the more confused they are, the kind of more they bounce around, and it might take a little bit more gentle prodding to get them to move. So with this particular soul, he did start to move a little bit. He felt a little bit more comfortable. There is a light at the tunnel, but remember, this is all our imagination. Everything on earth is our imagination. So this was this person's belief system about what was going to happen to him after death. And I am privy to that. I got to take part in his belief system with him. So we moved along the tunnel. It was not horribly long and not horribly bright, but when we did get towards the end, there were beings waiting for him. And if you have ever wanted to learn more about death, there's a great book called Home with God in a Life That Never Ends by Neil Donald Walsh. That is the book about death. I was very honored to be able to work on a workbook that goes along with that for him for some grief groups. And so we did get to collaborate a little bit on that. So the death process differs for every single person that goes through this process, and it can differ from life to life as well. So the more beliefs that you have about you're going to hell as soon as you die, the more you're going to see that in your world when you do pass, because everything is built on our beliefs. So we got to the end, and there were some entities, and apparently there were people that he recognized there, energy that he recognized. They had slightly human forms, meaning kind of light, and you could see the shape of a head and a body, and that was for his benefit and probably my benefit, just so we felt comfortable with the fact that there was an entity there was an entity here and here and here, and we could define them, because I'm still human and I'm accompanying this person on his way. So even though I'm just assisting, those entities still had relevance to me too. So he met up with his family members or whomever that was. Once that happens, every single time, it's like they meld into each other. It's like the energy brightens up, and they feel this sense of relief, like, oh, okay, I remember now where I am. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they go straight back to all knowing. That's definitely not the case. But I mean, if you hadn't seen a loved uncle in a long time, and then you see him walk up to you, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's Uncle Joe, and you're excited about it. So that happens as well when you pass. So there's energies there for them. So what I did with this one is I handed him over, and there's usually a larger, not necessarily bigger, but a more refined energy, let's say a more evolved soul that's there, perhaps as a guide that is overseeing the whole process, who basically dismisses me. And it's a nod. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is my first one where I'm actually like watching myself walk down the tunnel. So this guy just nods at me and I go. So I'm like, all right, I'll go. And then literally when I said I'll go, it's boom, I wake up and here I am in West Hollywood again. So it's quite interesting now that it's conscious how I am I'm going to say that, I'm going to change that, how I have been able so far to stop what I'm doing and go and be there for someone. Now, just to make it even more messed up, it really doesn't matter about time. And oh my gosh, when I tell this to people, they're like, what do you mean it doesn't matter about time? Did he die or did he not die? Well, yes, both, right? So in this case, I'll give you an example. I was like, all right, I don't know who this person is. So I'm going to look up all the death row inmates that were put to death today. And there were none, but I saw the guy's picture in my head and I'm like, okay, well, let's look at ones who were recently put to death. Nobody there. And then I went to some who were going to be put to death, and there he was. So I actually was able to help him prepare for his death a couple weeks in advance. And yeah, that's freaky. It is. It's totally freaky. And so there's a huge responsibility here. Like, oh my gosh, am I going to be like, what's that chick that talks to all the dead people and talks to their relatives? I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that. That's not who I am. But it is a natural human instinct to want to look it up and corroborate my information. And even I did that. So yeah. So let's talk a tiny bit about deathwalkers. And there's two kinds. There are indirect and direct ones. Sometimes people call them dreamers and stalkers. So an indirect one would be like I was when I was doing that in my dream state. And as you further on your path, you will come to the realization, as I did, that the dream state is just as valid as the non-dream state, right? It's actually more valid and more real than our waking state. So these things don't, the lines blur an awful lot about what is reality. Okay, so for me, it was really easy for me to do the dreaming part because, I woke up in the morning, I'm like, oh, okay, I helped some people, it felt good, et cetera, et cetera. But the stalkers, yeah, those are the angels. Those are the ones that are the hospice nurses and the people that are right there next to people who are dying alone, right, in a hospital or things like that. Those are the real badasses. So other than the animals from when I was younger, and I didn't even really know that that was what I was doing, I was not in direct contact with the person that was dying in the physical form. Now that I'm starting to be conscious about it and I'm starting to perhaps corroborate some of the people that I'm helping, perhaps I'm getting closer to that. I'm going to tell you something. I'm not a fan of dead bodies. I don't know. Maybe in some other life I was like Attila the Hun or something, and I'm atoning for it now because I don't like to look at dead bodies. Even like dead chickens when I had to pick them up because they die. Not the kind you eat, but the ones that were laying eggs. And I'm like, I don't like dead bodies. So dreamers, they've got a little bit easier than the stalkers who really are okay with being right next to a person that's dying. So, how do you feel if you're a death walker? I've had a couple people ask me this. Well, am I a death walker? Well, you could be. Honestly, could be. I mean, if you're watching this video either now, live, or later, there's probably a reason that you are. And you may have, I don't want to say an obsession with death. That's not the word. But for me, it has always been an acceptance of death and a lack of fear about death. And I do a lot of artwork that includes death, meaning I make urns for pets, from cats, dogs, and horses, and all sorts of things there. So I've always kind of been involved in the death, but I didn't exactly put the pieces together. So I did notice that at the back of my neck, right at the back of my neck, a little bit to the side, I would feel a tickling. And I thought, okay, well, that's weird, right? And you do this, and then it would happen at all times, whether I was sitting still, whether I was moving, I could feel that. And I did a little bit of research on it. That is actually a line up to the occipital nerve in the brain. And so either the nape of the neck, or sometimes I've heard other shamans say that it is in the pit of the stomach where they feel that somebody's calling them for some assistance. So the tickle in the neck might help you. A little bit of the preoccupation with death might be a sign. And although I'm not a shaman, I don't like to label myself because, as soon as you label yourself, you can go for a 3-day weekend course and learn everything you need to know. And I don't believe that's the case with anything. So I don't call myself a shaman, but this is a shamanistic practice. And it's been going on for a very long time. Just to give you an idea about time again, the whole time thing is really whacked out. For instance, I am still enamored of Egypt. I went there when I was relatively young, maybe 19 or 20. Right before I did, I got a little tattoo on I can't show it to you because it's kind of private, but on my hip about with the Eye of Horus. And Horus was the god of the afterlife, basically helping people move over to the afterlife and protecting them. Well, I didn't know. I just thought it was cool at the time. And, you know, I wore this tattoo for what, 40 something years. And I'm like, oh shit. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So aside from the whole Deathwalker thing, know that not everything has to happen in real time. Some things can happen in advance before you can get the explanation, before you get the thing that happens that it's explaining. And so with subjects like this, I have to put that in there, that time is not necessarily linear on these. What does that mean for most people? That they think I'm a fucking crackpot. I get it. I get it. But at this point, I recognized, and I'm sure that you're starting to recognize, that life is instantaneous and all of it is going on at the same time. Your lives are not linear either. Your lives are all happening at the same time too. Now, knowing that, there's an awful lot of people dying, right? So if this does interest you and you feel like you might be a death walker, then maybe explore how that feels for you, and if you might have that ability. So I've got some questions that people who couldn't come to the video and asked me to ask. What does it feel like when you're embracing that energy? I'll give you another example. I was recently called to, I guess they call it a walk. I was told, you're going on a walk, and all of a sudden I find myself on the side of the road in Nebraska. And there is a dead body on the side of the road. It was a young man, maybe in his 30s. He was walking along the side of the road, and a car hit him from behind and then took off because they didn't want to deal with it. So this man died by himself on the side of the road. Now here comes me, I think I actually had like a latte in my hand, and I put the latte down and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go check this out. And this person is already dead. Okay. And so what I see is the dead body, and I see this ball of energy, and it's just going like this. It's just going around the body, completely confused. Like, what is happening? I don't know what's happening to me. So that energy was kind of like a really dirty quartz. Like, there are parts that you could see through, but a lot of it was included with darker carbon-like stone, and it was very, very dense in places, and it was the edges were not defined. It was very rough. So we as death walkers can put our energy around and basically envelop them. And yes, you can feel that. You can feel their confusion when you envelop them, and it's a little bit scary. And anybody who knows about protection, right, who feels like they need protection, can understand how it can feel when someone else's energy comes into you. And so there is a little bit of human mind reminding me to keep myself protected. Now, in the real world of energy, we're always safe. However, when you've got a human body nearby that you're in charge of, we forget that very often. And so it's okay to ask for protection. And okay, well, here's a good one. Are there some that don't go with you? Yeah, there are. There are. There are some souls that are so damaged that they can't go into the tunnel yet. Now, what would you call those? You might call them ghosts, right? You might call them entities that are stuck in a haunted house, that sort of thing, where they are basically lost in a loop because they aren't able to acknowledge the fact that they're dead. And that is a very, very, I don't want to say common, but it's not as common as it used to be, thankfully. But those people who watch a lot of horror films, those people that see a lot of tragic deaths, that sort of thing, they do tend to have a little bit of trouble because they see so many people die in so much pain that they expect it themselves. So there are some that don't go with me. And there are some that fly right past me. They're like, I don't need you. And I'm like, oh, okay. One guy was just like, I don't need you. He turned himself into the energetic equivalent of a goose, and he just flew off right in front of me. And I'm like, well, all right, I guess he doesn't need me. And I believe that I was just shown that so that I could see the different patterns that people have in their energy and the difference in the evolution of the soul when it passes. Because a relatively evolved soul isn't necessarily going to need to go through that huge tunnel and see all those people at the other end. They've done it so many times. They're like, I know this deal. I know it. I'm good. Let's just move on to the next task for me, which is generally reviewing the life. So that's fun, huh? And a little bit back to the energy part. Do you bring their energy back with you when you wake up? I have. There was a baby who I did bring some energy back with. And if you've seen earlier videos, I did lose a baby, which doesn't feel all that great. So, helping one over that's confused, and wondering what's happening to me. I don't know what's happening to me. It was a little bit tough. So I do wake up and I try and take a mental shower. There was one time where when I brought someone to the end of the tunnel, that larger guide gave me a mental shower. I didn't even ask for it, but I was like, oh shit, I want one of those. So it was basically like just this huge white beam that went down through my crown chakra all the way down. And it literally felt like I was taking a shower on the inside. Like every single worry that I had and every single concern about anything, it was just gone. I was like, well, this is like the best drug ever. So I asked him for another one and he gave me another one, but it was kind of like rolling the eyes, like, okay, human, here you go. Now go home. So energy is a really big thing. And I know this is a really weird subject and it's not going to appeal to everybody because we are so used to death that doesn't hurt from movies and TV and, just senseless violence that we are really desensitized about it a lot. However, I would always want you to understand that no death goes completely perfectly in the fact that there's not something that they don't take with them. Meaning, even the guy that flew off like a goose is still taking the experience that he learned here on Earth, and he's bringing it with him to his next lives or his simultaneous lives. So every single life that you have, you're bringing things with you. Hopefully they're good, but there's probably some things that you didn't necessarily get to solve in that lifetime. There could be some issues about self-worth or whatever it is about being loved. And those things, they do go with you for a while for you to review when you get to the other side. Okay, well, we're almost ready to wrap up. I have one more question here. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Well, I think I might have done that one. What was the scariest one? The scariest one was recently in Chile. A young boy fell into a very badly filled mine. It was a mine that they tried to cover up, and it just, he went right through when he walked over it. And this little boy was about 12, and he was stuck under about 15, 20 feet of dirt and rocks. And he was terrified. He couldn't open his mouth because when he did, dirt would come in there and rocks would hit him. And it was very, very painful for me to watch him slowly die just from suffocation and fear. So that one was a little bit scary. I did bring some of that back with me, and he finally did pass, and there were lots and lots of people waiting for him on the other side. But I also did get a little bit of a glimpse of his mother, who was worrying as to where he was. So It's a very real thing. And just as real as my feelings are about this human life that I have, those feelings do transfer over to those people that we're helping. So, okay. Well, I am going to end it. This is a really long video for me. I don't like to do them too long because I know people have a lot of things to do. But if you have any questions about death walking or you want any more resources, please let me know. I'll put the Neale Donald Walsch book in there. It's a fantastic book about death, and I haven't heard or seen anybody else say it just the way he does about what happens when you die. And just a fantastic book. And I think a lot of people reading it are not nearly as afraid of death after they do. So, okay. Well, thank you, Max. Thank you, Jessica and Courtney. And yep. Sorry. And I love you all. And I will have some more videos up soon. And have a great night. Bye.